The best stuff
Coors
is
Light.
the coldest Coors Light, but the Showboat is closed. And if I can't have the coldest Coors Light, I want a 6-ounce Miller Lite in a tiny cup at the slot machine.
That you can stack up.
Yeah, at Seal the Deal. Specifically at Seal the Deal.
Did we really... It's sad that we missed that.
We talked about...
We never did it.
We talked about just
did it.
ordering a ton of them and just creating a huge stack, and we never did.
Well, we'd also need to, like, hide my Diamond card while we did it, because...
Because then they would be like...
They don't give that to Diamond card members.
Like,
they'll be like, we'll bring you a glass bottle, sir.
So this is... Sorry, you can have a real beer? Did you actually...
Yes.
Did you want something better than Miller Lite? No?
Sir, would you like...
Are you sure?
A Vortex bottle?
Welcome to episode 4 of Due for a Win, the AC and Casino Biz podcast. My name is Craig Stone. With me is Kyle Askin.
Howdy.
It's been 2 weeks, and most of what's happened in the last 2 weeks has not been terribly positive, to put it mildly. There is bankruptcy. There is more defaulting on loans. There is North Jersey casino news, and it's just a lot of negativity. So, I tried to be positive and to come at this with positive stuff, but I think we have to go right into the downer. So, it seems possible, increasingly possible, that Atlantic City will have to declare bankruptcy or work out some kind of deal with the Borgata, because they were supposed to pay the Borgata $62.5 million on Sunday, December 20th, as part of a $145 million tax refund for the 2009 and 2010 taxes. They did not make that payment. So that December 20th came and went. No money was sent to the Borgata. So they've missed that deadline. And now the Borgata is saying, what the hell? We need our money. You've paid everyone else. So basically what happened is all the casinos in Atlantic City had their property values reassessed over the past few years because, Atlantic City's not exactly a boom market. So as they've had these property values reassessed, their tax assessments have gone down. So what they owe in property taxes has gone down substantially. And so Atlantic City has paid most of the tax overages back to the other casinos. Borgata obviously was probably the highest valued casino at the city's value of $2.26 billion. A judge in 2013 knocked that down to a 2009 value of $880 million, so about $1.4 billion, and a 2010 value of $870 million, so even lower. So now the city owes a shit ton of back taxes to the Borgata, and Mayor Don Guardian is saying that Atlantic City just does not have that kind of money on hand. So what the hell? What's going on?
So, right, I think you did a good job of summing everything up. I listened to an interview the other day with Don Guardian where he was talking about what was going on, and basically he says they're sitting down with Borgata because it's not really in anyone's best interest for, if Borgata really pushes this to the limit, it could possibly force Atlantic City to declare bankruptcy because they just don't have the money to give them now. And so the next thing the Borgata offered is they're like, that's fine, we're just not going to pay you any property taxes until this difference is made up. And Atlantic City said no to that as well because, they make a lot of their yearly revenues from Borgata, with Borgata being, the biggest and most successful casino in Atlantic City.
And that would all be budgeted for already.
Right. They can't just not have that money for the next few years. So, from what I heard from Don Guardian, they're sitting down with Borgata. Borgata's at the table with them. And they're trying to figure out something that would be mutually beneficial to both sides, because clearly for the Borgata, it's not good for them if Atlantic City declares bankruptcy, because for one thing, it's going to, it's going to be up to a judge where the money that Atlantic City does have would go, which probably wouldn't be, all to the Borgata, so they would take a big haircut on what they're owed. And secondly, it would just be bad generally for Atlantic City, which, while Borgata probably isn't as affected by Atlantic City as a whole's health as many of the other casinos, it still is affected by the general overall health of Atlantic City, and it's good for nobody if Atlantic City is in bankruptcy. And something that Don Guardian talked about was, he said we can't really compare Atlantic City to Detroit, who famously did declare bankruptcy a couple of years ago, because Detroit wasn't really they didn't make their money off of tourism. And he thinks that, it would really hurt Atlantic City because it would really hurt their reputation to declare bankruptcy. It would not help them get tourists and not help them get conventioneers.
Yeah, and it's a real problem, I think, for them, and you nailed it with the tourism thing, because I think there are a lot of people who don't really understand bankruptcy, and don't necessarily understand that it's kind of a way to come to solutions that are hopefully workable, or at least, the best solutions given a very bad scenario. And it doesn't mean that, the city's shutting down and that the AC Expressway now shuts off before you cross over the bay and that you can't go into Atlantic City and go to the casinos and go to the restaurants anymore. I mean, I think that, I'm not saying that I think people necessarily think it's that drastic, but I do think people think, oh, well, stuff closes, Atlantic City's not going to be able to run itself, basically, if it goes bankrupt. And that's just not good for a city that already has image problems. And even if that's not necessarily what people believe, it's definitely goes more into this feeling of that Atlantic City is kind of this no longer a premier destination, kind of a second-rate struggling town, and that's also not good. So, I mean, we saw when Hurricane Sandy happened that people reported, CNN and other news outlets reported that a huge swath of the boardwalk was destroyed, and it happened that boardwalk portion was even up past Revel. Nobody ever goes there. It was going to be closed and torn down anyway, but when you have that perception where people have seen on TV something destroyed, they don't want to go anymore. They think, oh, Atlantic City's busted up, it's closed. And this goes even further into that, where you're going to have headlines basically saying, Atlantic City's financially busted up, and I don't think it's going to make people want to make that trip.
Right, and I mean, just to get a little bit more into some of the things that they're struggling with. I don't know, have you seen in the last few months there have been a couple articles specifically about the lifeguard pension situation in Atlantic City? Have you read any of them?
No.
So basically, Chris Christie appointed a emergency planner for Atlantic City, who's been working with Don Guardian and all the people in Atlantic City to try to get their costs under control.
Who is also an advisor for Detroit, as I understand it, in their bankruptcy.
Right. So one of the things that came up and is talked about a good bit, one of the costs that they have, is that there was a law passed in either the 20s or the 30s, I think the 20s, talking about the pensions that lifeguards get in Atlantic City. And it's basically a situation where if you were a lifeguard for 20 years in Atlantic City, you get, half your salary for the rest of your life. And not only that, but it goes to, after you die, it goes to your descendants as well.
Holy crap.
And, right, and it's something that they're paying out, I think, a little over $1 million a year into that. And, their total budget is $350 million. So it's a reasonably significant portion of their budget. It's just one example of a thing that they're trying to get under control. And, one could make the argument that something like bankruptcy would help get those kinds of costs under control where, what leverage do they really have against the people that they've already, signed the contract with when you become a lifeguard to that you're going to have this pension. I mean, it's not like the pensioners really have much interest in taking less money.
Right.
Um, but I mean, it's just an example of the kind of things that I mean, Atlantic City. I personally think that they've done a good job the last few years of trying to get things under control. But you know, I mean, honestly, when your budget has to be cut as much as Atlantic City's budget's been cut because of their loss of revenues from taxes from all these casinos shutting down and from, you know, the other casinos being valued at a fraction of what they were valued in 2005 and 2006. I mean, it's never going to be an easy process.
Could you argue that they should have seen this devaluation coming further ahead?
I mean, maybe. So, I mean, here's the thing, right? They should have known that when they assessed Sporg at whatever $2.2 billion in 2009, which was after the worst of the crisis, like that probably wasn't going to stand up in court. You know, they were probably going to get taken to court, and it wasn't going to hold water because, you know, as we've seen, a property like the Revel, which I think is the only property that's within the same league as Borg in terms of, you know, I guess niceness in quotes, whatever that means, you know, was sold for $82 million. I mean, it had a lot more problems than that, but they should have known that it was coming. And in their defense, have you read much about the like what they're trying to do now with all the taxes and the tax base in Atlantic City?
Like the pilot bill, the payment in lieu of
right,
taxes.
Payment in lieu of taxes. So what they're trying to do now is basically lock in the tax rate of all the casinos and basically make it based on their revenue instead of making it based on property values, which is based on now, which clearly, you know, you can have things happen like when there's a huge devaluation of property values in Atlantic City, like happened at the end of the last decade. You know, it's going to absolutely destroy Atlantic City's revenue base. So basically, they're trying to get this bill passed, which I believe did pass the House in New Jersey, and it did not get voted on in the Senate before the break. And so I think it would need to be passed in the Senate pretty soon after they come back from recess in about a week. But so if this passes, it's basically going to make their tax base be based on the revenues of the casinos rather than their assessed property value.
Which, to me, the payment based on revenue seems more intuitive as an outsider and somebody who, you know, doesn't own any real estate, let alone a casino or something that's a business that's bringing revenue. But you know, as far as what the value is, the property value to me doesn't seem as meaningful as the revenue. Although I guess they should be pretty tightly tied together.
Right. Well, I mean, it's not like Atlantic City doesn't have its hands in some of the revenue anyway. You know, it's not like there's not occupancy taxes and sales taxes and like whatever else. I mean, I guess a lot of that's to New Jersey and not to Atlantic City specifically, but I mean, the government does have their hands in the revenue cash flow already.
Yeah, right. So there, and the state does too. So,
right.
You know, the casino's already paying out a lot in revenue. So I'm sure to them it would seem like, you know,
I mean, it's like I pay income taxes and I also pay property taxes on the house that I own. So, I mean, that's kind of how it was in Atlantic City, but it's just that they horribly misassessed the value of these casinos during the big downturn, which actually I wasn't a homeowner in the sort of 2005 to 2010, like the big whoosh down that the economy took and that home values took. But, I mean, I know a lot of people that were, and I know that a lot of them had to appeal their tax value or their assessed property values to whatever their local county council or whatever.
So thinking about this from the casino perspective, you kind of make a good point from the homeowner side, which is that you get an income tax and then you get a property tax. So this would be kind of like saying, well, now we're going to tie your property tax. Instead of paying your property tax, you're going to pay us an income tax, And so normally, you made a real estate investment and paid X amount for your house. That is a set amount that was set when you purchased it whenever, whether that's, 2005 or just to pick a number. Well, your housing value may not go up as fast as your income, right? So, if you make 50% more, 20% more in income, having your property taxes effectively be tied to that seems kind of crazy. So yeah, that does make sense in that aspect. I don't know if I explained that well at all, but that's at least kind of makes more sense to me.
I'm personally interested, and I've read a decent number of articles about this pilot program they're trying to get passed. I've never really heard what the casinos really think about it. I suspect that they're not huge fans of it, but it is what it is. There's some other things tied into the pilot program where it's like it can only go up or down a certain percent each year. I think 2% or 4% or something like that. So it really locks it in. I think it was. I think the city of Atlantic City said they wanted to get either 120 or 150 million dollars per year out of the casinos through this program, and just make it kind of more set in stone, so it's not something that wildly fluctuates, because it's hard for them to make payroll and make sure all their budget's in order when something can happen and the property value of the casinos can go down by 60% in a couple of years.
Yeah, and like 4 casinos close, like we saw last year, or well now in 2014, and it didn't really make a drastic decrease in the revenue, right? So the decrease in revenue was not a third or anything close. So, but the property tax base goes down, probably not by a third, but by a lot more than what the revenue percentage is down. So that's something that's going to keep unfolding. I expect it'll unfold fairly fast. So we probably will have an update on the next episode.
Yeah, honestly, like I said, I think the Senate's only going to have a day or 2 or 3 or something like that to either vote on it and get it passed and get it into Chris Christie's hands to do something with, or if they don't vote on it, I think they kind of have to start the whole process over again.
Well,
because it passed one side. I think it passed the House or whatever that part of the legislature of New Jersey is called.
The Assembly, I think.
Yeah, the Assembly, but it hasn't passed the Senate yet. So
I'm just going to assume, based on Murphy's Law, that whatever is going to happen is going to happen between recording this and when we get posted, which is a totally ridiculous assumption because
that'd be pretty shocking.
Recording on Saturday.
A, it's the weekend. B, I think they're on recess for another week. So I think that's unlikely to happen.
It would be incredible, and somewhere in the press release it would say, like, this is just to spite Craig and Kyle at Due for a Win, which would be kind of impressive.
That'd be great.
One of our 14 listeners is somebody in the state assembly. I'd be fine with that if they want to do that.
Yeah.
So moving on to more downer news, since that's going to be the theme of the show. The Steel Pier is also facing tough financial times, and Firestone Financial, who I guess owns loans from the Steel Pier, is owed loans from the Steel Pier, says that the pier has defaulted on $1.5 million in loans, which seems like just play money compared to what we were talking about with Borgata and what the city owes them. But, the Steel Pier is obviously not playing on the casino's level in terms of revenue. It turns out that the rides on the Steel Pier are what are the collateral for this loan. So Firestone Financial is threatening to come in and rip out half of the rides from the Steel Pier. It would effectively shut the thing down. The Steel Pier, their lawyers claim that removing those rides would require about 10,000 man-hours of labor and structural reinforcement on 4 blocks of the boardwalk. So obviously a pretty big job. The Steel Pier, I think, had started a renovation a couple years ago. I want to say $2 million renovation. I don't know really where that stood because I haven't paid a ton of attention to the Steel Pier. It's not something we typically do. I don't know that I've ever even walked out onto the Steel Pier. So, yeah, jump in.
Keep talking. I mean, personally, I haven't ever been on the Steel Pier. I've certainly walked by it many, many times, and I've looked at it, and it's got a couple, little food stands or shops right at the entrance to it, but I've never walked down it.
So part of the renovation I know was that they added like a Phillips to go thing and a burger place. I think it's called Empire Burger. I guess is playing off the Boardwalk Empire thing. But it still doesn't look like it's fancy or anything in there. You look in and it's a bunch of those claw machines and some rides. It's a typical beach, boardwalk, pier, amusement center thing. So that's, not typically what we go for. So I'm not really sure what to think about this. I don't really know where this is going to go. There's talk that this Casino Reinvestment Development Authority is going to step in and may help out just to keep it from closing. But, it would definitely be damaging, right, to the city to have a pier that is half closed, right? I mean, that just looks really bad. But I can't get too worked up about this on a personal level. I'm assuming.
I mean, of course. I think, of course, it's bad for Atlantic City, especially because, to me, I think that the pier or the piers are so tightly tied to a lot of the history of Atlantic City and what people were doing, 50 years ago when they went to Atlantic City. I think the Steel Pier had a big role in that. So, I mean, I think it can't help Atlantic City. I think they lose a certain amount of prestige if it goes away, or, they lose something if it goes away. But like you said, I mean, I've never been on it. I'd walk down it, I guess, if I was thinking about it, but it's just something I haven't done just because, when we go, it's to gamble and to eat food and stuff like that, and not necessarily to, play laser tag or ride the rides or whatever is on the pier.
Right, so one thing that strikes me is, I'm certainly not above playing those games where you're like throwing a softball at dinner plates or whatever on the boardwalk, but not really in Atlantic City. If I'm going to go play soccer games, I'm going to go play 3-card poker or some sort of, bonus bets on blackjack, right? I'm not going to go try to win a 50-cent stuffed animal by knocking down some weird stuffed cats with like a frisbee. But you do make a good point about the history, right? Because Steel Pier is definitely an iconic thing in Atlantic City. It's the home, or former home, I should say, of the diving horses, which is one of the historical things about Atlantic City that people still talk about. It still gets brought up. And really, one of the things that I find very interesting about Atlantic City, and when we talked a couple episodes about, what do you love about Atlantic City, or what makes Atlantic City different than Vegas, and we kind of struggled to come up with things. One of the things that I kind of thought about was, in the interim, was that Atlantic City has such an interesting history, and obviously Vegas has its own history that's probably more interesting than I'm giving it credit for. But to me, Vegas just seems like, some mobsters came in and decided that they wanted to make a casino, and that would be an easy way to make a lot of money. And obviously, things changed, and you've got the Aviator and Kirk Kerkorian and all that stuff coming in and cleaning it up and whatever. But Atlantic City is just so odd, right? Because it was started as allegedly a seaside health resort. It always tries to claim that it has these wholesome roots of, a family resort. It was the family resort for the working class, and it was, the playground of the East Coast. And that's just all bullshit. I mean, if I've learned anything from reading just a ton about Atlantic City history and reading Boardwalk Empire, the book, and reading War on the Shore, about to read David Schwartz' Boardwalk Playground, I'm sure we'll say similar stuff. There's no innocent history to Atlantic City, and it's really just this long con, right, of trying to figure out the best way to separate people from their money. And Steel Pier is part of that. The Diving Horse Show is part of that, and so that sort of history I find very interesting. That's totally off topic from from Steel Pier losing its roller coasters or whatever, but just, the logo of the Steel Pier and the piers themselves, the history of the piers, I think is really a pretty important part of the city.
Right, and I think the Steel Pier is... So the two big piers I think about when I think about the history of Atlantic City are the Steel Pier and the $1 Million Pier, which has sort of been through many, changes since then, and it's now the playground. But with that having gone through so many changes, and I think there was a fire, in the 70s or 60s or something like that, that burned down the mansion on the $1 Million Pier.
Mansion, but One Atlantic Ocean.
Yeah,
this is still the address of the playground, I believe.
Is it?
Yes, it says One Atlantic Ocean right under the playground logo.
But I mean, I think the Steel Pier is sort of like we've been talking about. I've never been on it, but I imagine that when I walk on it, you'd have a feeling of classic Atlantic City. And I'm positive that there's a lot of people that, have been going to the Steel Pier for their whole lives, and losing it to them would lose the reason to go to Atlantic City.
So you did not get the feeling of classic Atlantic City when we walked around the playground and T Street. Is that what you're saying?
Right. And, I love, we've spent a lot of time on the pier. We've eaten a lot of meals on the pier, and it's very nice, but it's not classic Atlantic City.
No, it's definitely sort of new. The Continental, the sushi place that we always go to, there's a bunch of jewelry stores. I get updates now from the playground's Twitter all the time about their, Louis Vuitton sales and stuff like that. That's not what, that's a far cry from a horse that jumps off of a tiny platform into a little pool of water.
I mean, it's the Atlantic Ocean. It's a pretty big pool of water.
Well, they didn't jump into the ocean.
Oh, didn't they?
No, they jumped into some tub, I think. I'll have to go...
I don't think so. No, I think they jumped into the ocean. I mean, it might have been a little netted off area, but I think it was into the ocean.
I'm going to have to go watch some videos to catch up. So speaking of the playground, we talked about their New Year's Eve program where they were trying to get 3,000 people all popping champagne corks at the same time. They had a deal where you could go to their huge end event space and they would give you a champagne bottle of your own, and simultaneously they all would pop the champagne bottles and break a Guinness World Record. They succeeded. They totally sold out of 3,500 tickets. I haven't seen anything about this. I Google News searched it today, and other than their Twitter where they said, "We did it, we broke the record," it didn't even have a total number. It didn't have anything about, did it happen right at midnight? What was the timing? Where was it at? No pictures, nothing. It just said we did it, celebrating. So I don't know if they're waiting for the final number verification or if this is just the sad state of the news pickup. When you send out a press release, you want to check the pickup rate, where it gets published, who's seeing it, that kind of stuff. And I have just seen nothing of it. So that's probably not the best sign, but they did do it. I'm sure it'll be something that they'll use to promote themselves, but not necessarily as big a splash as I would have hoped now, 2 days after the fact.
Right. So, I mean, you're the journalism major, so you're the one that has, the expertise in talking about things like pickup. But for me, I'm happy they did it, but yeah, if you don't hear anything about it, there was no reason to do it, probably.
Yeah, I mean, I think this has kind of been a problem with Atlantic City the past few years, right? Is the Revel opened to almost no fanfare. They did very little promotion. I can't imagine what their promotional marketing budget when they first opened was, because you and I have talked about this many times. We would not have even known that it had opened if we didn't do Atlantic City Google News searches every couple of days. And so this seems kind of similar. The playground, which we saw was struggling a little bit when we were there in the summer. Their website, I feel like, is not a great promotion. It kind of has a bunch of empty space about what's coming up, who the music acts are. So that's not necessarily the best sign. And then here you've got this big event that's all for publicity, but then either they tried and failed or didn't try hard enough to get the word out and to get the publicity that this was supposed to buy them. So it's concerning, but in the long term, I doubt it'll have that much effect. I doubt even if it got a lot of pickup, it would have had a lot of effect, but it just would have been nice to see. So unless you have more to add on the Playground and their New Year's Eve record, we can move back to major macro issues, I guess.
Sounds good to me.
So this seems to be in your wheelhouse, right? Big macro issues, budget problems, bankruptcies. So North Jersey casinos we talked about might be on the ballot. It seemed like a sure thing that there was a state assembly version, there was a state senate version. They did not agree, but it seemed like something was going to be on the ballot. A couple of days after we recorded that, it came out that it might not happen, and there's some infighting, and there's political back and forth, which seems strange to me because the news that I had heard about the two proposals was that it's not like they had to agree, that at some point they could just kind of say, well, we're just going to pick one. And I'm not even clear on who would have the power to do that, but it seems like they didn't actually have to compromise and come up with a final solution. But now they're getting to a point where they need to make a decision. There are outsiders kind of coming in and trying to wield their influence. So, and it seems like it might happen. So there are the two plans. There's Senate's version, which had a public hearing on December 21st. That would require both of the new casinos to be owned by existing Atlantic City casino operators. Then there's the assembly version, which only requires that one of the two new casinos have an existing Atlantic City casino. Apparently there's also differences about how the gambling tax revenue is divvied up, how much of that goes to support the city of Atlantic City. I believe one of the versions is drastically less money to Atlantic City. So all of this seems to be not really resolving itself. And then on top of that, the mayor of my fine city, Jersey City, Stephen Fulop, has apparently stepped in and is trying to wield his influence, even though he's not a state politician. He is apparently if not front runner, widely considered to be a strong candidate for to be the next governor. He's apparently calling in favors because he wants to have a mega casino in Jersey City. So he's trying to sort of wield his influence, and it's creating fractions because I think his goal would be to have it be the assembly plan that only requires one of the new licenses. But anyways, all this is leading to fighting. I'll have links in the show notes that you can catch up on all this. But there's a public hearing January 7th for the assembly plan, and after that they need to start getting down to business and figuring out which plan they're going to go with. Is this thing going to go forward? Is it going to be on the ballot to vote for? So what seemed like a sure thing that would happen is now not necessarily a sure thing at all. Well, a sure thing that it would be on the ballot. We had a long debate about whether or not it would succeed. What I've had trouble finding is, what is the deadline, right? Like, what is the deadline to actually get something on the ballot? Because if it's January 15th, then they're in trouble. If they've got 5 months, then it seems much more likely that something's going to go through. So I haven't found that. I'll see if I can and update it in the blog post or something. But as far as the two plans are concerned, what's the major benefit of having Atlantic City casino operators run the North Jersey casinos, like from the state's perspective?
I mean, honestly, I'm not really sure how that... I mean, ostensibly, it's been put out there because people are saying it will benefit Atlantic City, or at least not hurt Atlantic City as much as the other option of having, some potentially unrelated third party come in and open a casino in North Jersey would hurt Atlantic City. But either way, if there are casinos opening in North Jersey, that will be bad for Atlantic City. And like I said last episode, it doesn't matter if it's Caesars opening a casino there. It's going to be bad for Atlantic City. I mean, I think you can claim they'll get comps there and they'll be able to go down and use them in Atlantic City, so it'll be fine. But realistically, I don't think it will be.
So I'm guessing that the argument with the operating casinos is that having a North Jersey casino is going to be such a boon to these companies. And if you have to have an Atlantic City casino up and running, suddenly you can't close your Atlantic City casino because you've opened a North Jersey casino.
I mean, so okay, to play devil's advocate, I mean, we've already seen, Caesars has shut down one casino, which was making them money. And I think that they're going to shut down Bally's at some point, which is making them money. And they have no plans of, I would think they would have no plans of shutting down Caesars or Harrah's. So saying that you have to have a casino in Atlantic City to open a casino somewhere else in the state, it wouldn't really hold them back. And it wouldn't help Atlantic City to say that because, like I said, if it's Caesars, for example, it's not going to change what they do at all.
Right. I mean, and this all goes back to, like you said, Caesars having multiple casinos. Would it mean that they can't close any of their casinos? That seems impossible. I just don't see any way that would be in the bill, right? In the referendum. And so are they just hoping that Caesars is in so much trouble that they're not going to do it? Because that's crazy. They've opened Horseshoe. They've opened other things. And
great.
I know that Hard Rock was mentioned as a potential partner in the Meadowlands. Hard Rock International, which is the one owned by, I believe, the Seminole tribe.
The Seminole tribe, yeah. It's the East Coast Hard Rock, not the West Coast Hard Rock.
Right. So they've been mentioned as a partner in the Meadowlands casino. So I'm guessing that's where the Fulop argument comes in, is that if they do, Hard Rock obviously doesn't have an Atlantic City casino. So they need the version that only requires one of the two to be licensed. But, from the minute that this thing was even mentioned as a possibility, that a referendum could be on the ballot, Meadowlands has seemed to be the most obvious destination. I feel like it's similar to the way that National Harbor was kind of always presumed to be a casino option in Maryland. And even though that took a while, it eventually did happen. Well, it hasn't happened yet, but it's under construction. So, if Hard Rock opens a casino in the Meadowlands, all of a sudden it's more difficult to get a casino in Jersey City. Also, they're extremely close together. Jersey City and I guess Meadowlands is probably considered Secaucus or whatever. They're very close together. I know that the bill requires any casinos to be located 75 miles from Atlantic City. I'm not sure what it would say about locations really close to each other in the new casinos. I would assume there's some distance requirement there because you wouldn't want to open, really Secaucus and Jersey City wouldn't make any sense. They're too close together. They're one stop apart on the New Jersey Transit, so that doesn't really make any sense. So I'm assuming that's where all the infighting comes from. And I don't really see the requirement that both casinos have Atlantic City roots, if you want to call them that, Atlantic City property. I don't really see that being the winner just because it seems like the power players are already rooting against that and fighting between themselves over which one they get. So I don't know. I don't really see that happening. For my own selfish purposes, I'm rooting against it. I'm rooting against this even getting on the ballot, just because I think it would be so bad for Atlantic City. And I don't really want a casino in Jersey City, which sounds funny, but I don't I don't need a casino that I can walk to. I don't know that I would even go very often, because to me the draw is the city and the atmosphere and the cluster of casinos together. And I also think, just from a societal standpoint, not everyone needs a casino between their work and their house. You don't need to make that stop on the way home. And I don't think it's a bad thing if it's a destination that you have to go out of your way for. So that's just me getting into my moral high horse, which is a funny thing to do on a gambling podcast, so I'm just going to go ahead and leave it at that. But I'm definitely rooting against this thing 100%.
I have a couple comments. So first, everything I've heard is if this passes, there's going to be 2 casinos, probably one in Jersey City and one in Meadowlands. So you can say it doesn't make sense to you, but I think that's probably what's going to happen. Secondly, about the moral high horse thing, I think that's well and good, but, the state's out to make the state money. I mean, you can say that, I don't know what it's like in New Jersey because I don't live there, but does it make sense that for, like, a lot of TV broadcasting and sports and stuff that, like, the main number one, like, lead sponsor is, like, the state lottery, when I think that's, like, unequivocally, like, a horrible thing for society? Like, is that a good thing? Like, probably not, but it makes the state a lot of money, so...
Oh, well,
it is what it is.
Yeah, I'm not saying that policy should be based on that. I'm just saying, from a personal standpoint, I don't like it.
Right. And I don't disagree with you. I think the lottery is terrible. But
oh, yeah, I mean, it's amazing. I saw $20 scratch-offs in a vending machine the other day, and it's incredible to me that you cannot gamble legally in a lot of states that also have where you can just walk up to a vending machine and put in $20 and get something that has these horrendous odds. Right, that's probably way more detrimental to a way bigger portion of the population that probably shouldn't be putting their money into that than a casino that's all the way down in Atlantic City, or even a casino that's in Jersey City, probably would be to people. So that's my rant on that, and we can probably move on to other things unless you have anything to add about North Jersey.
Probably a good idea, because I don't have a lot good to say about the lotteries. Like I said, it drives me crazy when it's like the main title sponsor of the Washington Nationals is the DC Lottery. It's like the worst thing in the world. It makes no sense on so many levels.
Well, now it's all I guess if they're going to have FanDuel being
that's true.
Investors in FanDuel are the leagues. I guess they're pretty much gone on that argument anyway.
Hey man, you got to make that paper.
So new stuff. Let's talk about some new stuff. Have you heard about the Polar Coaster?
Ironically, I have, because I'm friends with you and you send me a lot of things.
So, the Polar Coaster, not polar like a bear or like the Express, but pole like a flagpole, has been approved. The design for this has been approved by the CRDA. And so there's also one that's been designed for Florida. And basically, I don't even know how to describe this thing. I'll have a link to it in the blog post for the show, so I encourage you to go click. It looks freaking crazy. It is basically a giant spire-like thing with a roller coaster wrapped around it, and that, even describing it in that way, does not do it justice in how insane it looks. I mean, it looks freaking terrifying, but they want to open one in the old sand space, which, as you know, has been empty for a very long time. So it has been approved by the CRDA. I don't know what that means for moving forward. My dog has just walked out to cough loudly onto the podcast, so he says hi. So this Polar Coaster thing, besides just looking insane, it's supposed to have a bar attached to it. It's supposed to be an attraction in and of itself. And the thing that kind of strikes me about the polar coaster, well, the first thing that strikes me about the polar coaster is that you're going to have a bunch of idiots at clubs now using just the god-awful line of, you know, hey, do you want to go ride the polar coaster? Is that it's on its own. It's not part of some other development. It's not part of the Steel Pier, which, as we know, is not looking to add any rides. It's not part of a casino. It is just there. It's just going to be its own thing. I guess they're going to build attractions around it. Kyle's asking me what that noise is, and that is the dog. That is my pug who is going nuts. So enjoy that. I'm sorry, but I may try to cut it out. I may not. But anyways,
I had to mute myself because I was laughing so hard because it's so loud.
Was it the coughing or the scraping on the floor? Because he does both.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know, man, but it was loud.
Well, he's gone back into the closet, so he's in his little carrier in the closet. But he's struggling. So anyways, the polar coaster. So do you want to ride the polar coaster?
I would do it.
I would not do it.
Are you not a roller coaster person?
I don't mind roller coasters, but this thing, I don't like heights. So roller coasters are already sort of at the tipping point. But
I honestly, I don't like heights either, but I do like roller coasters. So, when I was cleaning out my gutters, whatever, 30 feet in the air, it was pretty terrifying for me, but I like roller coasters, so I would ride it.
I mean, I'm ready to throw up just looking at this thing. Like, there's so many downs and ups and downs and ups and big I mean, it's obviously, however many feet tall.
So when we went to Vegas a couple of years ago, did you go on the New York?
No, I did not go on the New York roller coaster. So this thing's supposed to be 350 feet tall. So this is like, what, 35 stories? So that's too much.
I think the one actually on Stratosphere is probably higher up because it's on the top of it, right?
Right.
It's even scarier than New York.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm saying the polar coaster.
Yeah. No, I gotcha.
The New York roller coaster, I've heard just rocks you around and, rattles your bones, and it's just a generally horrible experience. I don't know if that's the experience you got.
I actually didn't ride it either.
Oh,
I think I was playing poker or something.
We were gambling instead of riding rides.
I was gambling by myself many times that trip.
So
which was that our buddy Dave's bachelor party?
That was indeed. So it's 203 feet tall. So the polar coaster is significantly taller. I don't know. This thing just looks horrifying to me. But that being said, I hope it gets built because I want something new and cool.
And you want to be able to say, hey, baby, do you want to go ride the polar coaster?
Yes, except the only person I would probably ever be saying that to is you, which is just kind of creepy and weird. But I don't ever talk to any girls, so that doesn't really make any difference to me.
And the podcast is taking a turn.
And that's it. Hey,
yeah, that's it.
We're married. We don't have to prove anything to anybody.
And not to each other. The record show.
Oh, yes, that's important. See, we've talked about, I've said this many times, that Caesars probably thinks we are like a common law married gay couple in that we so frequently are the Total Rewards companion code on each other's trips.
Many times.
Certainly more frequently than we bring our wives.
Right. And, when I do bring my wife, she doesn't have a TR card. She uses mine. I have multiple copies of mine. And so, both of our comps will go onto my card. So, as far as Caesars knows, if they're not really on top of things, between that and, one of my best friends is actually gay, and I don't know what he's in their system as, but I very frequently am his companion as well on these TR codes. I'm sure that I probably get a lot of LGBT promotions.
Nice. It probably doesn't help that we have the same address on our cards and last name. None of that is true. these are bad jokes. I'll probably cut all that out. Moving on to other new stuff. The Borgata is getting a new club in the spring of 2016, which is like 2 months away.
Yep.
Premier Nightclub, which is a pretty bland name. Mix has already closed. Murmur, which I thought was super popular, is going to close. And on top of that, they're expanding all of this space, and it is going to be 18,000 square feet of Oomps paradise. So Borgata is basically saying, look, we already dominate in this area. We are the place to go to club in Atlantic City, but you can't be stagnant. We're taking it to the next level with 18,000 square feet. I personally will never go to it. I don't really care, so chalk this one up to in the same realm as the Polar Coaster. Maybe where the Polar Coaster line will get used more than anywhere else. Actually, probably the Quarter in Tropicana. But
right.
But as far as, the number one casino, getting bigger, getting better, getting new stuff, always good to see, right?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, if you ask my opinion, I would have said this would have been a great idea like 3 or 4 years ago, when I think that, and like you said, I don't really know, I'm not a club guy, but from everything I read, from what I read about what's happening in Las Vegas, it seems like clubs are a bit on the downswing, but I think that throughout the years, Borgata has shown that they should be given the benefit of the doubt, and so just simply because it's Borgata, I'll assume it's probably a good idea for them to open this, even though if it was any other casino, I'd be like, they probably should have done this a couple years ago instead of now.
Right, so the talk in Vegas is that, like, EDM is dead, the celebrity DJ is on the way out, Wynn is changing all their clubs over, and they're just saying, EDM is still going to have its place, but other stuff is coming in to take over, ultra lounges and whatever else. Ultra lounges is probably even some old thing that I only know about because I'm over 30. So I don't know if this is going to be a DJ club. I'd assume. I mean, Mix and Murmur are gone, so the DJs have to go somewhere. But it is a little interesting that they're going all in on this, right? Like, they now cannot really diversify their club experience so much, right? Unless, I don't know what a club looks like. Like, I'm assuming it's going to have a bunch of different sections, and you can go in, maybe one section's going to have the DJ, and another section's going to be, like, some other kind of music, or there'll be a lounge as part of it. This is all just assumption. So they've got a quick turnaround, so it's going to happen soon. But other than that, I guess we'll see more about it as they start building it.
So do you think that, I think you said when you were talking about it that the Borg was kind of like the best place for nightlife in Atlantic City. Do you think that's true? Because I actually don't think that's true, which is probably why they're doing this.
What do you think is the best?
I'd say probably... from what I've seen, from the people I've seen walking around the casino floor on Saturday nights, either somewhere like the Trop or somewhere like maybe Harrah's.
So
and honestly, I've heard that a lot from you, but I've heard that Golden Nugget actually has a pretty good nightlife scene as well with Haven.
Right. So Golden Nugget certainly promotes theirs a ton on Twitter. Which is all I really know about it.
So I've actually heard an interview with Don Guardian as well, where he specifically says that Golden Nugget does a great job with sort of the club crowd.
Interesting.
I don't know if that means anything, because, he's an old white dude, and we're like slightly less old white dudes, so I don't know, but I assume that he would know that kind of thing.
Yeah, this is a game for young white dudes.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Which none of the three of us are.
Right, and I see all these things on Twitter about who the incoming DJs are, and the two things that I can't get over is how bad some of the DJ names are, or like how self-aggrandizing some of the DJ names are, and also how all their promo pictures look like they work at the same law firm as associates, and they like just got off work and they loosened up their tie and rolled up their sleeves and they're ready to hit the ones and twos, which is the only DJ term I know. And then
Gonna make the oonce, man.
And then they're gonna make the oonce and get those people onto the dance floor.
That's right.
So that's pretty much all I know. You're right. Harrah's, I think. I mean, they've only got the one club, right? The Pool After Dark, but it seems like that's really popular with the youngsters, with the whippersnappers.
Yes.
And then, Tropicana obviously has the Quarter, so they have several clubs. They have good club options.
Right. I mean, even Caesars has I think
Dusk.
it's called Dusk,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, and they've actually, so they have Dusk now, and I think I don't know if it's always been there, but just in looking up what to do on my next trip, they apparently have kind of a cool lounge that's part of now the Dusk complex, they're calling it, up on the floor, I guess the second floor you'd call it, at Caesars.
Yep.
So that's all. You're right. Maybe Borgata is not the dominant club player that I think they are, and certainly if you look at their clientele, just the fact that it's a pretty tasteful casino and it's nice and generally
it is
kind of high rent.
Yeah, I mean it's a totally different clientele. It's not, generally speaking, it's not a lot of 21 and 22-year-olds, I think, and I think they might want to try to change that.
So one thing we talked about previously that I just want to touch on here before we finish up is we had mentioned briefly, what makes someone from New York City want to go to the clubs in Atlantic City, want to take the bus or get in a car and drive down to Atlantic City to go to clubs when there are, hundreds of clubs in New York City, especially if you live in New York City or on public transit to New York City. What makes you want to go to Atlantic City? So I was thinking about that a lot, especially because I had the same conversation with one of our friends within the last week. And I think there are a few things. One of them being that it's probably significantly cheaper once you're at the club. And you could argue, well, you've got to get down there, but you probably don't have to do too much at the club to make up the difference, like to skyrocket the price in New York City. You probably don't have to drink too much, or I don't know what else you even spend money on in the club. Drugs, I guess. Molly. But that doesn't go to the club, I don't know, maybe the Molly's cheaper in Atlantic City. So, but, it's like a $42 bus ride. You get $25 in slot credit. So if you're like me and you say that's a $17 bus ride, even though you lose all your slot credit, you don't have to do much to make up a $17 difference. And even if you're getting a room and you're splitting it with, 3 of your bros, and you've got 4 dudes, and each of you are spending like $50 on the room, which would be on the high side, you're still only talking about, $60, $70 that you've got to make up in difference. And there's just something cool about going someplace to the club, right? Like if you live in New York City, or if you live on the New Jersey Transit or the Metro North or whatever it is, and you go into Atlantic City, having to trudge back on that transit late at night after going to the clubs, probably doesn't sound all that appealing. Whereas, you go someplace, there are a bunch of clubs in one spot, you don't have to worry about how you're going to get home, you have a cheap room. That's probably pretty cool if you're 25 years old. I'm just trying to get in the head of a 25-year-old and think about why they go down there. And I don't think it's as crazy as we sort of assumed that it was.
No, I mean, I don't think it's crazy. I mean, I know, personally, my wife used to go to the clubs in Atlantic City, not a lot, but I know she's been with friends. I think partially because one of her friends was dating a guy who lived in New Jersey, but I know she's come up here a lot. I know that my brother and his wife went to Atlantic City for New Year's Eve a year or two ago to go to the clubs, so it does happen.
And I think the clubs...
And it's not like there's not clubs in D.C. or whatever.
Right, and the other thing I think is that the people... I think the clubs in New York, and this is just based on being in crowded bars in New York, I think they probably skew really old. The people in New York who have money are, older than I am. And so the clubs...
It's old.
So the clubs are full of, 32 to 35, people who are, doctors and lawyers who haven't had any fun because they've been working too hard on college and getting their degrees, and now they're finally like single and free and have a lot of money. And like that's the people who go to New York clubs. So if you're like 23 and you go to a club that's full of a bunch of like 32 to 35-year-olds, that's probably not that enticing. That being said, bringing it back to Boogie Nights, because everything has to relate to Boogie Nights, and I will be so upset if we do not mention them on an episode of the podcast. We were maybe like the third youngest group of people at Boogie Nights when we went.
Yeah, we were definitely among the youngest people there.
And
it's not like we were like there were a lot of 35-year-olds, so we were the youngest. It's like there were a lot of 50-year-olds, so we were the youngest.
Right. So our friend, I mean, we just had dinner with lunch over the Christmas break with some friends of ours, and one of our friends, his wife grew up in Ocean City, or like near Ocean City, and her parents had a house in Ocean City. And she said her parents go to Boogie Nights in Tropicana. Her parents, not her. So that gives you an idea of what the age spectrum is there. And the other thing about the Trop is that I used to teach at a college. I used to teach journalism classes, and I had a student who said that she and her friends would go down, would take the bus down and go to the casinos at the Trop, and then take the bus right back up in the morning. So, you get that ticket with the open return whenever you're out of money or, too drunk to dance anymore or whatever it is, or your heels just hurt. You hop on that bus and you go back. So the $42 includes the return trip. So I think I can't get into the mind of a person who is 21 years old, but apparently they go to the clubs at the Tropicana and then take the bus back at 4 a.m.
Right. So I don't know how many articles you've been reading about clubs in general, but I read an article a couple months ago, I guess, about how important the clubs are in Las Vegas, and it was all about how they're trying to cut down on the number of traditional hosts that they have in Las Vegas. And for people who don't know, hosts are people whose job it is to basically make whales, who are people who gamble a lot, happy. But, a lot of it was about how in Las Vegas they're trying to cut down on the number of hosts who are looking for whales, and they are actually trying to add hosts who are looking for what are called basically club whales, who every time they go to the club will get bottle service and will spend, $20,000 a night or $50,000 a night at the club. So, I mean, it's a thing that is a good way for the casinos to make money. And like I said last episode, the casinos are in the business of making money. They don't necessarily care if it's from gambling or if it's from nice restaurants or if it's from clubs or if it's from shops or whatever.
Yeah, and the markup, obviously, on the booze at the club is insane.
The bottle service.
You're paying $300 for a bottle of Grey Goose, and they're buying all this in bulk and getting it for probably, less than $10
or $15
something insanely cheap.
$15 probably.
For a bottle. They're just making tons of money for the privilege of sitting at a seat and having a bottle of booze, so that if members of the opposite sex come over, you can pour them a glass of something. That's pretty much it, as far as I understand it. As far as my old ass understands.
I mean, basically, you're trying to buy sex, more or less. Although I hear there are cheaper ways to do that, if that's really what you want.
I'm told any alley in Atlantic City, you can do that. That's not personal experience. That's not.
I don't know if that's true. I mean, have you? I've been to Atlantic City a lot more than I've been to Vegas, and yet, I've never been propositioned by a prostitute in Atlantic City, which is not the case in Vegas. In Vegas, they're all over the place.
No, you can't swing a dead cat in Vegas without hitting a prostitute.
Right.
And
never mind the card slappers, which are also prostitutes, but not actually there.
It's a prostitute Rolodex, basically.
Yes.
No, I've only had one encounter, and it wasn't even the typical, hey, you want to party? Come on, let's. It was just this creepy woman who was pulled lingerie out of her shopping bag and was like, "Do you like this lingerie?" And I was just like, "I'm going back inside." And
was that in Vegas?
No, that was in Atlantic City. That was over.
Oh, really?
It was between the Walk outlets, which, just for the sake of the story, I really hope she bought it at the Walk outlets because that's awesome. And Bally's, so like over by whatever that hospital center is. I was like walking there to go back into Bally's, and this woman kind of followed me and started asking me questions, and she seemed like pure sadness.
Right. No, that's never happened to me in Atlantic City. And like I said, I've been in Atlantic City a lot. Whereas if you're in Vegas and you're happen to be like at a bar at all, anywhere, no matter what, at like, 1 a.m., like you are going to get propositioned.
Oh, yeah. So I guess it was now 3 years ago when we were in Atlantic City, or when we were in Vegas during Hurricane Sandy. I got stuck out there for an extra day, and everybody else got out. And so I was in MGM. They had comped me one night. They agreed to comp me a second night just because I couldn't get my flight back. So that was
right. And I stayed with you the first night, right?
Right. So then the second night I was just wandering around on my own, and I ended up like I didn't feel that good, as we've talked about.
Right.
I had Fatburger. I don't blame Fatburger. I think it was just my own sort of weird nervousness about going back and my Vegas trip being over. But I'm walking around MGM Grand at like 3 a.m. It's like a Monday, and they're vacuuming, which is really weird to see people vacuuming casino carpet. If you haven't, it's really jarring to see like a vacuum cord across a slot machine. And I'm looking around, and there are all these like, I don't know, maybe 30-year-old women who are very well dressed, like professionally dressed, but like you walk by and they'll like stare at you and give you a little smile. And for like a split second, you're like, oh, that's weird. Like all these girls are interested in me. And then you're like, wait a minute. I'm not that dumb. I mean, maybe I'm that dumb, but like, no, clearly these women are working. So that is just everywhere in Vegas. And I mean, these people are like sitting at slot machines because it's 3 a.m. Nobody's going to tell them to go away. So that was kind of, I've never had anything like that in Atlantic City.
No.
So that's very pro Atlantic City. That's something we can take with us and say, hey, Atlantic City has less whores.
I hear Samuel was on the prowl again.
Yeah, he's like, oh, did somebody say whores? Oh my goodness, this is insane.
It's pretty loud. It's awesome.
Yeah, I think he does it just to spite me at this point. So is that a wrap up then? Is that how we're going to end it, with just hacking dogs?
Samuel just making the most noise possible in the background.
That sounds about right. It seems to fit with. Oh my! He's walking right here. He's literally a foot away from the microphone. And now he's getting into the baby stroller, like the undercarriage part of the baby stroller. He's getting into that, and he's in it. He's fully in it. Oh God! I have to go deal with this dog. So that seems like
I think it's a good place to wrap up.
I think that's as good a place as any.
We're at a perfect time, I think, even if you do or do not cut out various conversations we've had.
Wow. I mean, what a way to end it.
What a way to end it, man.
So this, again, is the Do For A Win podcast. Follow us on Twitter at DoForAWin. Email us at doforawin@gmail.com. I should probably check that email.
Did you even check it before this episode?
No, I didn't check it. So I'm really on top of things.
We could have probably had a lot of questions from all of our interested listeners, and now they will go unanswered. I'm
going to go way out on a limb and say not one email. That's my guess. Not even one. Maybe that's cynical of me, but that's my guess. Anyways, I'll check that later. I'll probably forget, but email us still. Definitely email us. It'll make me feel good. You can find our podcasts on iTunes. We are on iTunes. Or at doforawin.com. That's where we post the show and update with show notes and links. There will be lots of news links from this show. Thanks for listening. Happy New Year. Go run up those tier credits that you've lost all of over the new year.
Yep, Happy New Year. We'll talk to everyone in 2 weeks. Did you like my random G-chat while you were talking about Tropicana?
I did, and I couldn't remember if I told the story about standing at the bus line at 7 in the morning. The bus comes to New York, and like all these people get off, and it's like half tired, makeup,
21-year-old girls,
running down their face because they were sleeping on the bus. Club girls, just in like not cocktail dresses, but like club outfits.
Yeah, I got you.
Wow, I'm so old that I said cocktail dresses. They were in their nightgowns, Kyle.
I thought it must have been my birthday.
And then super well-rested looking octogenarians who clearly like played the slots, ate the buffet at 4:30 p.m.,
went to sleep, and then woke up at 4 a.m. and got on the bus.
In their comped room, and then got on the bus. And I was getting the bus at 7 a.m., so it must have left at 4. And yeah, it was just incredible to see this
awesome group of people,
theater of life at its finest, just walk through the door to the Port Authority bus terminal in New York.
Yeah, man. I've heard amazing things about the Port Authority bus terminal.
It's worse.
It's a legend.
It's worse than anything in Atlantic City.
It's known around the world.
It's bad. It's shitty.
That's good.